A storm didn't need thunder to feel dangerous. Sometimes it came wrapped in stillness, like the one sitting across from me at the dinner table. Across the flickering candlelight, Talia stirred her wine with that same cold smirk she'd perfected over the last year. It used to be a smile that made me feel like the only man in the room. Tonight, it was the blade before the plunge. "I'm done pretending, Callum," she said, her tone light like she was reading a grocery list. "There's someone else. His name is Bryce. He makes me feel alive again." She watched me carefully, waiting for my world to collapse. Her wine glass poised, her chin raised, her eyes dancing in anticipation of drama. She thought she was about to destroy me. I took a slow sip of coffee. Let the silence linger. No shouting, no accusation, no scene. "All right," I said, setting the mug down with a soft clink. She blinked. Just once. Her smirk faltered. "That's it?" she asked, more confused than triumphant. I smiled faintly. "You've made your choice. Why would I stop you now?" She leaned back in her chair, suddenly wary. It wasn't going the way she imagined. I was supposed to plead, to sob, to throw furniture, to spiral. She didn't realize she was already a character in a story I'd been quietly writing. That dinner table, it wasn't a battleground. It was a chessboard, and she was 3 moves from checkmate. The signs had started a year ago. But unlike most betrayed husbands, I didn't confront. I observed. I adapted. Talia was once warm, playful, full of life. Then came the girls' weekends. The sudden phone obsession. The way she flinched when I walked into her room. It wasn't hard to follow the threads. I'm a systems engineer. I notice patterns for a living. Her patterns were screaming. Bryce Halden, a glorified wellness coach who taught yoga in the mornings and scammed investors by night. Tattoos he didn't earn. Confidence he hadn't earned. A man who talked in quotes and made women feel seen because he memorized what they wanted to hear. Talia thought she'd found someone raw and exciting. What she didn't realize was that Bryce had more secrets than tattoos, and I was about to expose every single one. But not yet. I wasn't ready to make noise. I needed to finish building my weapon first. I called Nathan. We hadn't talked much since college. He ran a cyber forensics firm now. I reminded him of that time I'd covered for him when he got caught hacking into the university network. He remembered. In 72 hours, I had Bryce's browser history, phone logs, alias list, even voice memos. Turns out, Mr. Enlightenment had a string of women in multiple states. And worse, he was already under quiet investigation for identity theft and fake medical licenses. He didn't just lie to Talia. He lied to the law. While she snuck around, I made her dinner, kissed her goodnight, told her to drive safe to book club. Meanwhile, I set up my own invisible system. Hidden cameras, encrypted data logs, heat sensor alerts. Every whisper between her and Bryce was mine. Every moan, every lie, every detail. But this wasn't about revenge yet. It was about preparation, about timing. I began draining money from our joint accounts. Small amounts. Strategic. Transferred to a separate LLC under my name. One she didn't even know existed. I created debt under hers. Increased insurance premiums. Shifted utilities into her name. I even redirected her credit card reward points to a new burner account. The life she was so eager to destroy, I was building a version of it that would survive without her. Then came the weekend. I told her I'd be out of town, tech convention. She barely looked up from her phone, already planning to have Bryce over. I kissed her on the forehead. Don't wait up. I didn't go far. Just a cheap Airbnb nearby, armed with a laptop and 3 monitors. At 9:17 p.m., Bryce arrived with a 6-pack and that stupid guitar. She opened the door in silk. They kissed like hormone-crazed teenagers, not 2 adults ruining a 10-year marriage. I didn't feel rage. I felt precision. They laughed, drank, got comfortable. I waited. At 10:42 p.m., I made a call. My anonymous tip was detailed. Bryce Halden was in violation of a court-ordered probation at a known address, with an outstanding warrant. Nathan's law enforcement contact fast-tracked it. At 11:04 p.m., red and blue lights danced across my home security feed. Talia screamed. Bryce stumbled for his pants. And I just took another sip of wine in my Airbnb kitchen, watching it unfold like the finale of a show I directed from the shadows. By midnight, Bryce was in cuffs. Talia's voice cracked as she screamed at me from the front yard. "You set him up." I stood calmly beside my car, suit freshly pressed, smile neutral. "No, Talia," I said. "You set yourself up. I just made sure the trap was clean." She lunged at me, but was held back by a uniformed officer. And for the first time in years, I saw it. Real, palpable fear in her eyes. But we were just getting started. This wasn't the climax. It was the overture. They say vengeance is best served cold. But they forget, cold isn't silent. It echoes. The morning after Bryce's arrest, the house was eerily still. Talia sat at the kitchen table, same place she dropped her betrayal, except now her hands trembled around a mug she hadn't touched. Her mascara was smudged, her hair tangled. The silk robe from the night before hung off her shoulders like it no longer fit her. "You proud of yourself?" she asked without looking up, voice gravelly from a sleepless night. I was buttering toast. Calm, steady, not proud, just relieved. She slammed the mug down, shattering the handle. "You destroyed someone's life." "No, Talia," I said, turning to face her. "He did that himself. I just gave a direction." I handed her an envelope. "You might want to sit for this." She tore it open with shaking hands. As she read, the color drained from her face. "You filed for divorce." Her voice cracked. "A month ago. My attorney just waited for the trigger." Bryce was efficient. Her eyes darted across the document. "You can't do this. We built this life together." "You mean the life you were tearing apart, lie by lie?" I leaned in, voice still measured. "You signed a prenup, remember? You laughed, called it a formality." "I was in love," she snapped, almost childishly. "Yeah," I said, my tone dropping, "with the idea of being adored. Not with me." It had taken months to set this up. I'd rerouted every financial trail, closed accounts, frozen joint assets, moved the investment portfolio to a private trust under my name. Every purchase Talia thought she made with our money, she had no clue it had been under a forensic microscope for weeks. When she opened her banking app and saw the balance, $2.67, she physically reeled. "You can't do this. This is theft." "No, it's cleanup," I said. "All legal, all documented, all traceable." She stood up too fast, stumbled, and grabbed the counter. "This isn't over," she whispered, more to herself than me. "It never is," I murmured. "That's the problem with people like you. You always think there's a second chance waiting." The fallout began with whispers. First, her boss called. "We're reviewing your conduct, Talia." She fumbled through excuses, but they didn't care. Screenshots spoke louder than denial. Nathan had helped me build a digital folder, encrypted, time-stamped, geolocated proof of Talia and Bryce's affair. Private messages, flirtatious photos, expense reports showing romantic getaways listed as client meetings. One file was titled, simply, Liar to PDF. At exactly 8 a.m., those files reached 10 inboxes. Her supervisor, HR, her team, and a few friends who were never as loyal as she thought. By 9:12 a.m., she was placed on leave. By 11 a.m., she was fired. I didn't gloat. I didn't even watch her meltdown. I made myself a protein shake and went for a jog. Because real revenge isn't loud. It's clinical. It's surgical. It's watching the person who thought they were your puppeteer realize they were the marionette all along. Later that day, she tried to corner me in the hallway. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "Please, Callum." I didn't mean for her to go this far. Her voice wasn't seductive anymore. It was raw, torn. "I was lonely," she said, eyes glassy. "You were always working." I felt invisible. I tilted my head. "And instead of saying that, you slept with a fraud with a man bun." She flinched. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "I loved you," she said. "No, Talia," I replied. "You loved the way I loved you. The moment I asked for something back, you ran." She tried again. A hand on my arm. A sob that shook her. I stepped back like her touch burned. "You don't get to cry now. You didn't cry when you lied. When you cheated. When you laughed behind my back. I lost everything," she said. "No," I corrected. "You gave it away." By the end of the week, the walls were closing in. Her gym pass was declined. Her phone shut off. The shared car she drove? Repossessed. The final blow came when she went to her sister's house. They wouldn't let her in. Even her own family wanted distance. The scandal was radioactive. Nobody wanted to be seen supporting a woman caught mid-affair on a security feed. She had nowhere left. That night, I found her on the steps outside the house, hugging her knees, barefoot, sobbing. "Please," she whispered, "just let me sleep inside. I have nowhere." I stood in the doorway. "The guest room," I said after a long silence. "Just for tonight." She nodded, grateful, broken, humiliated. She passed me quietly, like a stranger in a house she once ruled. In that moment, I felt something strange. Not victory, just silence. And sometimes, silence is louder than any scream. But I wasn't done yet. I wasn't going to ruin her. I was going to redefine her. By morning, the woman who once ruled the halls of our home with perfume and passive jabs was curled up on the guest bed, wrapped in a blanket she didn't recognize, because I'd bought it after she left. Talia barely stirred as I walked past her door. I didn't wake her. She wasn't a threat anymore. She was a ghost in her own story, lingering out of habit, not purpose. I brewed coffee in silence, checked the headlines, and smiled. Yoga guru arrested for probation violation during illicit affair. Local CEO's wife implicated in financial misconduct. The faces behind the facade. Bryce Halden and the Mask of Enlightenment. The articles were neutral, clinical even, but the comments, the reactions, merciless. She'd spent years curating a digital identity. Perfect vacation photos, quotes about strength and elegance. Those filtered images that blurred her pores and her truth. Now that feed was flooded with shame. I didn't post a thing. All of it spread without my fingerprints. Because when you build your life on lies, it only takes one whisper of truth to make the whole thing shatter. She finally emerged around noon, barefoot, eyes red, hair tangled. "I saw the articles," she whispered. "Did you?" I shared nothing. I said plainly, not even looking up. Other people did. People who watched, who knew, who had enough. She gripped the back of a chair like she might collapse. "My inbox, it's hundreds of messages, hate, threats. They think I knew about Bryce's past." "Did you?" I asked, finally meeting her eyes. She hesitated. "That's the problem, Talia," I said, my voice low. "You never ask questions. Not when you're getting what you want." I left for work, letting her sit with the silence. When I returned that night, the guest room door was closed. But she hadn't gone. Her shoes were still at the entrance. Her scent still lingered. A week passed like that. She barely left the house. When she did, it was to visit old friends, only to return more broken than before. No one opened their doors anymore. She tried her parents. They refused to speak to her. Her mother had once adored me, and now she barely concealed her disgust for her own daughter. Her sister was harsher. "You humiliated us all," she texted. "Don't contact me again." Then came the email from her former employer. "We have concluded our investigation. Due to the breach of policy and the reputational risk, we cannot reinstate your position. We wish you the best." She cried that night. Not the kind of tears designed to manipulate. The kind of sobbing that sounded like it came from somewhere deep and ancient. The kind of sound that no longer begged for pity, just relief. But I didn't go to her. She'd made her bed in another man's arms. Now she had to feel the cold without mine. That Friday, she tried to cook breakfast. I found her standing in the kitchen in one of my old hoodies, flipping burnt eggs with shaking hands. I thought maybe we could talk. I took a seat at the table, not out of softness, but out of curiosity. "I'm sorry," she began, eyes brimming. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want to say it." I didn't answer. She continued anyway. "Bryce was charming, confident. He said all the right things. And I was selfish. I wanted to feel new again, young again." "You wanted to feel powerful," I said. She nodded. "I ruined the one person who truly had my back." "That's the thing, Talia," I replied. "You didn't just ruin it. You tried to replace it with something worse. And when it fell apart, you expected a soft place to land. I was wrong." "Wrong," I repeated. "Wrong isn't the word. You were reckless. Cruel." She looked away. "I miss who we were." I stared at her for a long moment. "I miss who I was before you made me become this." Days passed. Her presence shrunk. She stayed out of sight. When I left, she was in the guest room. When I returned, she was in the backyard, alone, smoking, staring at nothing. But something changed in me too. Revenge had been sweet. Now it was hollow. She was ruined. Not just financially, socially, emotionally. No friends, no money, no job, no identity. And yet, something inside me felt unfinished. Because even with all her losses, I still hadn't told her the whole truth. Not about Bryce. Not about what I found in her emails. Not about the second man. See, Bryce wasn't the only one. 6 months ago, while digging through her deleted messages, I found something worse. His name was Austin, an old flame. A one-night mistake she swore never to repeat, until she did. 2 months before Bryce, when I was away on a trip, she'd flown to Austin City. Spent a weekend. Told her friends it was a work seminar. I had screenshots, photos, an audio recording she never knew existed. She thought she was clever, but she'd built her castle in a house of glass. And I still had one stone left to throw. I watched her from the kitchen window that evening, barefoot in the backyard, her head down, cigarette glowing faint in the dusk. She didn't know I had one last truth left to break her with. Austin. She never suspected I'd find him. Never thought I'd trace her airline miles, hack her deleted chats, uncover the weekend she said she was at a conference. But I had everything. Flight receipts, hotel confirmation, even photos, her in his arms outside a luxury suite. So while she tiptoed around the house, quiet and ashamed, I made one final call. Not to Austin, to his wife. I expected yelling, accusations, maybe a lawsuit. Instead, I got silence. 3 hours later, Talia's phone rang. She ran to it, like she was desperate for a lifeline. Her face fell instantly. She didn't speak, just listened. Then her knees buckled, and she sat on the stairs, phone clutched to her chest. I didn't need to ask what was said. Austin's marriage, over. His career, collapsed. His wife, vengeful. And Talia, she wasn't just the side woman now. She was the reason. That night, she knocked on my door again. I know I don't deserve to ask anything, she whispered. But did you do this too? I looked at her. You broke more than just my heart, Talia. You burned bridges I didn't even know existed. Her eyes welled. I was stupid. I thought no one would find out. And now you're sorry? I'm destroyed. I said nothing. Because she was right. She was. The next morning, she was gone. Left a note. No goodbye. Just a line. I'll carry this forever. You were right. About everything. And honestly, that felt better than revenge. 3 weeks passed. No texts. No calls. No social media posts. Just silence. And yet, I felt no emptiness. Only clarity. Talia had become a shadow in the rearview. A reminder of who I used to be and who I refused to become again. I kept the house. Kept the business. Reclaimed every dollar. Every ounce of dignity. But what I valued most was what couldn't be bought. Peace. Not the quiet kind you get when someone leaves. The kind you earn when you survive them. Then one evening, just as the sun was setting behind the trees, a letter arrived. No return address. Just my name in familiar handwriting. Inside, a single page. Callum, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect you to finish reading this. You were right about everything. About Bryce. About Austin. About me. I used to think love was about how someone made you feel. But you showed me that love is how someone holds you when you're broken, and I never realized how often you held me until I let go. You were the only real thing in my life, and I destroyed it. Not because I didn't care, but because I couldn't see past my own reflection long enough to appreciate the person staring back at me. Asterisk, I've lost everything, but that's not your fault. It's mine. I see that now. I'm leaving the city, starting over somewhere no one knows me. Asterisk, thank you for showing me who I really was, even if it shattered me. Goodbye, Talia. I sat at the table for a long time after. Not angry, not triumphant, just still. Because the truth is, revenge doesn't end with destruction. Not really. It ends in recognition. When the person who hurt you finally admits they were the problem. That letter? It was the last piece. Months passed. Life moved on. I expanded my company. Reconnected with friends I'd neglected. Took quiet walks in the evening and learned to enjoy silence again. One night, I met someone. Her name was Elise. She didn't ask me about my past. She asked me what I liked about mornings. She didn't need fixing, and neither did I anymore. People often say betrayal defines you, but that's wrong. Healing does, because healing means you refuse to become what they were. You chose growth instead of bitterness, distance instead of destruction, and peace instead of chaos. I don't know where Talia went, and I don't care. She'll live her story, but mine, it's just beginning.